Bit of a somber open to our Thursday episode. Today, we celebrate the short NC State career of Grayson McCall.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Thursday episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Happy Thursday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we got sad news Wednesday evening. Quarterback Grayson McCall announced over social media that he will be medically retiring from the game of football. Not exactly surprising news, and after the very scary hit that he took against Wake Forest, a lot of Wolfpack fans believe that that probably should be the last time that McCall takes the field. 2 head injuries in a very short amount of time. Being that he's a senior with a history of head injuries, it just makes a lot of sense that for his own health, he decides to hang up the cleat. But it's very sad. It's a very sad end to a very short-lived NC State career here. Of course, McCall was brought here to be the guy and lead us to heights we have not seen in a while. Didn't quite get that out of the gate, and then he endures the injuries. Just a very bittersweet end. For anyone that's ever played sports before, there comes a day where you lace them up for the last time. Not all of us, in fact, many of us have no idea when that day is coming. Very few athletes truly get to decide when they want that day to be. A lot of times it's because you age out of eligibility. Very unfortunate instances like this one, it's due to injury. Very few athletes get to hold the pen for the entirety of their career. And so seeing this message from McCall on Wednesday night, it hit home from a lot of folks. It certainly hit home for me. Kenton, I'm sure it hit home for you. Kenton, not to kind of get you in your feels here, but as someone that has been in very similar shoes as Grayson McCall, what was your take on his decision to retire?
I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's making what they believe is the best choice for themselves, and I fully support him in this choice. I think the scariest part, and y'all are going, if you listen to Locked On ACC tomorrow, you're going to hear me say a very similar thing because, I mean, it's the same situation. You just got to talk about it nationally and locally. But the reality of this is brain injuries are scary. They're very scary because they're different. I tore both of my Achilles and my bicep. I knew after I tore my Achilles both times. I didn't know I tore my Achilles the first time. But what I did know is I can't walk without a boot right now. When I tore my bicep, I didn't know that I tore my bicep, but I knew my arm is working at a much lower function than what it normally does. When you talk about and when you consider your body no longer working or betraying you in some way via injury, you normally have something there to remind you, some feeling, some like, oh boy, that hurt. When you have a concussion, you don't generally, for the most part, you don't get that. You don't randomly just get headaches out the blue like, oh, my brain's reminding me that my head hurts. It doesn't happen in that way. What does happen is your brain becomes more susceptible to permanent long-term damage if it happens again. And the play that we saw him get his helmet knocked off and then get hit again after the helmet came off. That is a situation where to be quite honest, I'm just glad the brother is alive. And so, the biggest thing is in his statement, he said, I walk away with the contentment in knowing that every time my feet touch the grass, I gave it everything I had. And you talk about, being in a similar position to where McCall is. That was my exact same thought and feeling. I never achieved the collegiate success that McCall did. I never got there. But you could ask any of my teammates, you could ask Coach Doran, you can turn on the film. I wasn't perfect. There were plenty. I can tell you the games where, hey, I played about 4 snaps this game, and almost all of them I ended up in the dirt. But there was, knowing that you left it all, knowing that you didn't cheat the game is what I'm saying here. You never cheated the game. You never cheated your teammates. You never cheated yourself. It's something that helps you walk away. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because it never is. It never is easy to go from 60,000 fans screaming your name to not having that anymore. That's just not something that humans were even supposed to experience, in my opinion. But knowing that you gave it all you had, and knowing that you weren't one of those guys that you look up and say, the game got away from me because I couldn't stop making bonehead mistakes off the field, or, I wish I would have gone harder. I always was reserving something for the next level. Knowing that you gave the game all you had and you didn't cheat the game, sometimes that's all the consolation that you'll get. And it's a damn good one, because not everybody can say that. As an athlete yourself, Grayson, even if it wasn't on the same level as me, that you played with guys who everything they could, they were going to sprint out or ground out, and you played with guys who are like, buddy, what? You're so good at this. Why do you not try harder? And so to end up in the former group instead of the latter, sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes that's all you get. And, I think he's making the right decision, because me personally, I don't think that your brain is anything to play with. And there's no reason to be punch drunk when you're 30. There's no reason to have the shakes at 35 because, you just had to hold on to that rope and get a couple more games of glory in. Sometimes it's time. And I'm glad that Grayson McCall decided the decision that was best for him and his family. Hey, it's time.
And in his statement, he says, quote, "I have no regrets throughout my career, and that is something that I can be proud of," unquote. Well, Grayson, I think you should be proud of your entire career. Again, this is a guy, although it was not at NC State, it was at Coastal Carolina, 3-time Conference Player of the Year, over 10,000 career passing yards. This is a guy that was not highly recruited out of high school. Look at the career that he has built. That is something that's unprecedented. And a lot of these Sun Belt football fans I saw pouring out of the woodworks, they consider him as one of the best players to ever play in that conference. And so McCall leaves this game with a ton to be proud of. And Wolfpack fans are certainly proud of him as well. I also am in the opinion that it is the right decision. You see some of these former NFL guys that are dealing with the consequences, after taking beating after beating after beating, and the awareness around brain injuries is now at an all-time high. I know Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL is probably the more prominent example right now, although he's trying to work his way back into the game. Kind of a relevant situation here. Tua wants back in. Grayson decides that it's best for him and his family that he hangs him up. It is ultimately up to them and what they want to do. But in Grayson's instance here, I do think he's making the right decision. So we wish Grayson McCall certainly nothing but the best here. All the leadership skills that he exhibits are exactly what you want to, have the building blocks of a great coaching career. And guys like McCall, they will always land on their feet. A guy with his charisma and his moxie and his leadership, he's going to find a place for himself within the game of football still. So certainly nothing but the best for him moving forward in the future. And last thing here on Grayson McCall, I also tweeted this from the account on Thursday, November 9th. It's our home game against Duke. It's our last home game of the year. It's senior day. Grayson McCall should be the Alpha Wolf starter of the game. I think that makes all the sense in the world. It's kind of like the perfect send-off for the fans to give him for both his time here at NC State and his football career. Obviously, it's not ending the way that he wants it to, but I think that's about as good of an ending as he could have. And that's the least we could do for NC State Wolfpack fans. So anyone in the Murphy Center that happens to be listening to this, if you have any type of pull over who the Alpha Wolf starter of the game is, I think it needs to be Grayson McCall on November 9th. Somber news, but coming up next, we're going to move into some basketball talk. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Thursday sponsor is FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start to win big this season on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page that you're placing all of your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just your first $5 bet on the app. It's another loaded slate of college football this week, And as always, you got a great slate of NFL games as well. Waste no more time and head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Middle portion of our Thursday show. Now time to get into some more NC State basketball talk. It's really getting close, folks. Basketball is less than 2 weeks away. Prime time with the Pack is tomorrow on Friday, and the season will begin in a little over a week from right now. But before we even get into some basketball talk, does anyone remember when this happened?
87% free throw shooter on the season, but this is 1-1. And he missed it. 4 seconds. O'Connell gets it off. And Michael O'Connell banks in a prayer to send this game to overtime.
And who could forget this moment?
Get it in. And it's over. This is what dreams are made of. An unlikely run to the Final Four for NC State.
And certainly no one will be forgetting this one anytime soon.
A remarkable, astounding week for the North Carolina State Wolfpack. And let the celebration begin in Raleigh. They earned every bit of this.
And Kenton, I tell you, every single time I hear the DJ Horn post-game speech.
It has been 37 years. Talk to me about these tears right now.
Man, I'm at a loss for words right now. You know, I came home with a mission, man, and to just see this right now, all the confetti all over the place, red and white, man. This for the city, man. This for 919, man. I love my brothers. I couldn't play in the first game because I was hurt, and they got it done for me and gave me the opportunity to make this happen. And I wouldn't be here right now, man, if it weren't for them, man. So I just want to say, man, shout out Wolfpack Nation, man. The job not done. And like I said from the jump, man, why not us?
It starts getting a little bit dusty in here. Even now, I'm starting to think about it now and it gets a little dusty in here. But all right, let's move forward into this season. We're going to start touching on big picture expectations for this team in 2024 and 2025. For the offense, what are your big picture expectations for this new Keats offense this season?
I expect it to be more balanced. I think that there are a ton of guys who can get it done at a high level in terms of scoring, but I don't see a situation where we have a Jaquavian Smith that we're going to trust to be carrying the lion's share of the scoring load like we did 2 years ago. A DJ Horn that, like, you know, we're going to be like, hey, he's the only guy that can hit shots tonight. So we got to hold on. And DJ Burns, where it's like, if these two aren't rolling, we've got nothing offensively. I don't think it'll be that. I think this will be a much more balanced attack where you're seeing multiple guys who can give it to you all different kinds of ways. So I'm expecting the offense to be better, be more up-tempo, and I think this team is deeper than they were last year, which helps out with that balancedness offensively.
I agree with you, and I think this is funny because it's something we talked about last year coming into the season, how we felt last year's team was more balanced than the year prior, and perhaps one of the deeper teams that Keats has had. And that's certainly been a little bit of a 3-year trend, but this season, I think it is the most balanced team that Keats has had and the deepest team that Keats has had. And offensively, certainly it's going to be weird without both DJs and Casey Morsell, some contributions from Mo Diarra, but this is an entirely different team. Now, you return Michael O'Connell, who's more than likely going to be your point guard. Jaden Taylor is another contributor to the Final Four run. Interested to see how he slots into the lineup. I think basically he'll be like the new Casey Morsell, which is your 3-and-D guy. But you're getting a new look front court, Brandon Huntley Hatfield down low. I would argue that he's maybe one of the most important players on the roster. You also bring in guys like Dontrez Styles, Marcus Hill. You bring in Ishmael Diouf from Canada. Some of the highly touted freshmen, such as Trey Parker, Bryce Hurd. You get year 2 of Dennis Parker Jr. Whole lot of faces, and you're trying to figure out what kind of offensive production you're going to get here. I think NC State will be a lot more interior focused this year. I don't think there's going to be such a reliance on one guy or two guys to knock down the outside shot like you saw last year with DJ Horn. And to that point, it's going to feel a lot more balanced. I think this will be the type of team where any given night, it can be a different guy that leads you in scoring. We hope that'd be the case last year. In all reality, it just turned out to be DJ Horn for the entire year. This year, I think there's several different guys on this roster that can step up and lead the way offensively. And now let's talk about some defense and maybe some rebounding, Kenton. What are your big picture expectations there?
This is an area that I'm a little bit concerned about because while we are bringing in some pretty good defenders and whatnot, I'm not sure that we're seeing a rim protector come in that I'm like, hey, I know this guy is going to affect shots at an extremely high level. I do think that we have some pretty good defenders on ball in terms of perimeter defense and defending guys on the wing and all that. I think we have some good guys who do that. But if you have a bunch of good, normally you need some great to clean it up on the back end. And in terms of rebounding, this has to be a team effort. We do not have enough bigs that are going to be playing heavy minutes to say, hey, we're going to count on y'all two to get it done. And we're not really worried about it beyond that. No. This is going to need to be a team effort if this team wants to accomplish their goals.
I think this team is a lot faster. I think they're a lot quicker also. I think they're just simply more athletic. And so it'll be interesting to see how much pressing Keats does this year. And I've taken a lot of exception to all the pressing that Keats has done in years past. And you saw him kind of go away from that during that postseason run last year. And he seemed to have found something, and it really worked for that team. So that's something I'm going to have my eye on early in this season, is how aggressive he does get on the defensive end in that fashion. But to your point, Kenton, I think you're absolutely right about rebounding. It's going to be all hands on deck all season long. Now, Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, he's a double-double machine coming over from Louisville, but he can't do it by himself. It's going to take Middlebrooks in the mix, guys like Dontrez Styles in the mix. Mike James may or may not be the sixth man of the year. It's going to take very scrappy efforts from everyone else across the board to ensure that we aren't giving teams countless opportunities to take advantage of. So defensively, I think we're much quicker. I think maybe you sacrifice a little bit of height for more speed. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out on the defensive end. And now we'll go big picture expectations for the schedule as a whole. And I'll break this into two here. So first, we'll talk early non-conference opportunities. There's four big ones. We have Purdue and either BYU or Ole Miss in San Diego. We have Texas coming to Raleigh in early December. And then we travel out to the Fog and play Kansas in mid-December. So Kenton, of those four games, what's NC State's record in those four?
1-3, maybe 2-2. I want to be wrong, and I mean this very serious. I want to be wrong here, but those are the four of the best programs in the nation, man. Like you're not talking about some slouches here. I mean, Kansas has won the Big 12 outright or won a share of it how many years consecutively here? Like that team has been the class of that conference for so long for a reason. And even beyond them, I mean, you're not looking at any squads in those four you just mentioned where you're like, I don't think they'll be all right this year. I think they're going to be terrible. Now, again, I would love to be proven wrong. But I think 1-3, maybe 500 is what we're eyeballing.
Now, that question was definitely putting you on the spot. It's an extremely difficult question to try and sit here and answer in October. I don't know if I see them any better than 2-2 as well. I think possibly 1-3 perhaps is the most likely scenario. So early in the season, when you have a relatively new team and so many pieces to try and gel together, when you got to go up against Texas or travel to Kansas, Kansas is projected to be the number one team in the country who rarely ever loses on their home court. NC State's got to go pay them a visit, okay? And then obviously you have Purdue and then either BYU or Ole Miss in San Diego, California. That is our close to Thanksgiving tournament to open the season. I don't know. I mean, Purdue lost a lot. There's certainly no more Zach Edey in the black and gold. BYU, their head coach went to Kentucky, so they're relatively new. Ole Miss, you get perhaps another matchup of Chris Beard. You know they're going to be extremely well coached. I don't know how NC State is going to fare in these early season tests, but you certainly hope that they can learn a lot and build on that as the season goes. Even if they don't experience a ton of success in them, what they take from those matchups will be most valuable.
Stay the course, man. Build some resilience, learn something from those losses. Or hell, went out, shock the world, went out and go be the number one team for a little bit. You know, who knows?
And then yesterday, Kenton, you gave a hot take that you think NC State will finish top 4 in the ACC for the season. What is the ceiling and the floor for this team this season?
I think the floor is where most people are predicting to finish. That 9 to 12 range. I think that's the floor just about. I can't see this team being much worse than that. I think the ceiling is, like I said, top 4 seed in the conference, maybe even top 3. because, again, when you look around the conference, you really do struggle to say, hey, this team on paper, head and shoulders above where NC State is. I have no doubt about it. So I look at this and I say, in terms of my big picture expectations in full range, I'd say it's a pretty wide range.
I agree with you. I think the floor for this year's team is essentially what last year's team looked like right before they went on the postseason run. It would be missing the NCAA tournament. It'd be a very low seed in the ACC tournament. That would be the floor. I think if several things go extremely wrong, that could be a situation you're looking at. However, I think that the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, because the ceiling, I agree with you. I think the ceiling is a top 4 seed in the ACC. And it would certainly all depend how everything shakes out. But I would anticipate that a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament might give you anywhere from like a 6 to like an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. So making the tournament and then perhaps withstanding a couple rounds, I think that is the ceiling. Obviously, it's extremely difficult to just say, well, if they went to the Final Four with last year's team and we think this year's team is better, can they do it again? I don't think a single person is going to predict that, because that was the most unbelievable of runs ever. So yeah. I don't think anyone's going to predict a very similar run for NC State this year, but the baseline should be getting back to the tournament and hopefully winning a game or two and possibly more. Anything more than that would certainly be a bonus. So for Kevin Keatts and the crew, the goal, as it should be every year, is to make it to the NCAA tournament and or win your own conference. That should be the goal year in and year out. And coming up next, we're going to close our Thursday episode with some X factors for this year's basketball team. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second Thursday sponsor is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 12 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. How about that? Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. If you want to play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sean O'Malley, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entire entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community every week. PrizePicks puts its member first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as just 15 minutes. So sign up today and you can get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play just your first $5 lineup. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE on PrizePicks. Head on over to PrizePicks and run your game. Last couple minutes of our Thursday show. Yesterday, we talked about players we're most excited to watch. Today, we're going to talk about X factors, guys on this roster that potentially could have the biggest impacts that no one sees coming. Kenton, give me some X factors you have on the brain for this season.
I mean, when you look at a roster with this much turnover and how many new faces there are going to be, you could say 1,000 guys are going to be the guy that you say, hey, he's an X factor. What can he do? And all that type of stuff. But I mean, to me, it's not even particularly hard in terms of I'm very, very, very intrigued. And when I say very, I mean I'm interested in seeing what we get out of Breon Pass and Paul McNeil. I feel like those two guys, for equal and separate reasons, could be complete and total X factors here. Breon Pass, because he is a guy that I've been waiting for him to pop for quite some time and see like, this is how good it can get with him and how special he can be. And defensively, he's trusted to take on some pretty hefty assignments. With Casey Morsell leaving, Jaden Taylor's probably going to be the guy that, okay, he travels with your best guy. Who goes with the second best? Could it be him? Could he see lots of minutes or even specialist minutes when the game is closed late and you've got to kind of end things there? Paul McNeil, because he is said to be a shot maker supreme. I want to see it. I want to see it at the college level. I want to see him fill it up at a high level. He is said to be a guy. He can get his shot off from anywhere. He can get it off the dribble. He can get it out, catch and shoot. You know, it's like what Petey Pablo said frequently. Do you want it over here? Do you want it over there? Where do you want it? Paul McNeil Jr. can give it to you. I want to see it.
Is that what Petey said?
That is in fact what Petey said.
In all seriousness, I really do like that Breon Pass pick. And there's so much praise that can be placed on the Breon Pass because that's a guy who's been here for 4 years. And honestly, he's had very little to show for it. And his loyalty to this program is extremely admirable. And I remember when Michael O'Connell went down in that Final Four game, Breon Pass came in. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he gave you double-digit points on the biggest stage he's ever played in his life. A very unlikely source of an offensive burst there. For Breon Pass this year, I think he could find himself playing extremely meaningful minutes whenever Michael O'Connell's off of the floor. And when you need another point guard to come in and run the show, so to speak, when O'Connell's taking a breather, I want to see what you can get from Breon Pass. And this is, again, a very experienced guy. He's been with the program for 4 years. I want to see what he can do with an increased minute count if it does come to that. I do like that Breon Pass pick. For me, and I'm not exactly sure if it's an X factor because it's a guy that's expected to be a factor, but it's Dontrez Styles. And I think, obviously, Dontrez Styles has a history. He played for the Dirty Foot Club in the past, and we kind of snickered at that when he came over to the Pack. He also played for Georgetown, and this is a guy that's more than likely going to play a lot of minutes at a stretch 4 position. If Keats decides to run a little bit of a smaller lineup and Styles plays the 4, you're going to need to get hefty contributions from Styles in those minutes. And that means rebounding. That means being a force down low when perhaps you're undersized a lot of those minutes. And I think the 3-point shooting for Dontrez Styles is what I'm most interested in. For this team, I'm not sure if I see any consistent sources of 3-point shooting. And for Styles, this is a guy that was a 36% shooter last year at Georgetown. That was a couple ticks up from 33% in his last year he spent the Dirty Foot Club. If he can improve on that again and get somewhere around like 38 to 40% 3-point shooting, that could be a very valuable weapon to this team. And so last year, when you really only had DJ Horn be consistent, you hoped Casey Morsell would be the guy, but just he struggled for a lot of the year. Dontrez Styles has the opportunity to be a little bit of the marksman for this team, and that could provide sparks in a lot of very key pivotal moments for this squad. So for me, I think the X factor very well could end up being Dontrez Styles.
You have a team that is looking to be predicated on getting the ball inside. You have multiple players that get to the rim, penetrate, finish at a high level, guys who score in the mid-range. You know what stops that from happening when teams can just pack in the paint and say, hey, we'll let y'all beat us from 3, but your self-check. So Dontrez Styles and others having the ability to stretch the floor and make teams have to respect you from deep is pivotal to this team having offensive success next year, or this year, rather.
I think Dontrez will be the keep him honest type of guy for this team. Hopefully I'm right about that. We'll see how it shakes out here in a couple short weeks. That'll do it for us here on Thursday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the medical retirement of Grayson McCall. Tell us what you think about our big picture expectations for NC State basketball this season. If you have any of your own, drop those in the boxes as well. And any X factors you have on your mind, let us know your thoughts on those. That'll do it for us here on Thursday. We'll see you back here for more tomorrow on Friday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.